Atlanta was just, I don't know how to describe the fact that it was just a totally different city.
West Peachtree was not crowded. It was sort of a deserted street back then.
The city was just right for all of us kids that we were reading, you know, fanzines from England about, you know, punk and new wave. And then the Sex Pistols come to Atlanta.
Don't know what I want, but I know how to get it. I wanna destroy, Pacifiers, 'cause I wanna be anarchy.
Cruisamatics opened, Johnny Hibbert's band, which was basically a cover band of, you know, 50s and 60s punk songs and stuff like that. I remember Daryl Rhodes came out with a giant safety pin through his cheek, and it was a parody thing. And but you know, I'm like 18 years old at this time, and it completely blew my mind. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. It was a half an hour, all white lights, you know, no color lights. I was right up front. You know, Rotten comes slinking on stage. I'm John with the Sex Pistols, and boom, there it was. And I just knew everything really was changing. You know, it was the most exciting thing I'd ever seen.
I don't really, to be honest with you, remember a whole lot about the show, which is sort of typical for the time, but I would say I wasn't disappointed. I don't remember being disappointed whatsoever.
If you look at any footage from that show, it was like everyone was there.
The kinds of people the Sex Pistols attracted? All kinds. All kinds. Some aficionados of the raucous rebellion that is called punk rock. Punk began in Britain. This, the first big British punk band to come to America to see if it can happen here.
Johnny Rotten looked like he had powdered himself with talc, and it looked spectacular because every time he shook his head, this spray and this like nimbus of snow and came off his head. I don't know that he really did powder himself with talc. For some reason I don't know that that was really his style, but it looked like it. You know, there were a bunch of media people from outside of from New York, John Rockwell. This is back when rock writers sort of made made some kind of a difference. You know, maybe Robert Christgau was there, handful of guys, and that was a big deal. But to me, the guy that was the best guy was Jack Perkins, who was with the Today Show at that time. And Jack had come in a day early to see what the Sex Pistols thing was all about.
The Immigration Department tried to protect us from them, denying them visas for a few days late in December. But now they're here and they're loosed upon the land. They're the Sex Pistols, the British punk rock group that began their first American concert tour last night in Atlanta. And Jack Perkins was there.
The publicity that preceded the Sex Pistols to America said they spat on audiences, vomited on stage, sang of anarchy. Those were the things that had made them famous. And here they are, at least two of them in a hotel room in Atlanta, waiting for the other two to do a promised interview. But they're in a strange mood, flaky, demanding they be paid $10 before they'll do any bleep interview. Denied that, they stomp off. Bleep, they say.
I said, well, Jack, did you give him the $5? Hell no. like his integrity would have, I got to tell you, I would have given him the $5. But Perkins, no, he had some standards. He wasn't going to do that.
Well, what more can be said? In the past, there have been groups who were shocking and outrageous enough to get attention. Elvis Presley, the Beatles themselves. And they lasted because they had the musical worth to last. Well, Johnny Rotten and the Sex Pistols are outrageous enough to get attention, and that's about all that's been proved so far.
You know, shortly after that, there was another punk event. Just a week or two later, B-52s played, the Fans, the Nasty Bucks, but all of this happened in the next 6 months.
I joined this band called the Nobs that were one of the premier punk bands in Atlanta at the time. Well, punk wasn't really big in Atlanta when I first got here, but the Sex Pistols played the Great Southeast Music Hall, and all of a sudden, since the Nobs were like number 2 or number 3 on the punk top 10 in Atlanta, all of a sudden we were popular. Yeah, we were playing the Agora, the Electric Ballroom, the Southeast Music Hall.
What comes up was there was a contest for creative loafing for local music in different categories, and naturally we were entered into the new wave category, which had just, the name had just started being used because people didn't like the word punk. So we ended up in the top 3, and so we had the kind of final showdown at the Agora. It was us versus my sister's band, the Nobs, who had a bring down the house number. It's called Disco Chainsaw. The lead guitar player, Tim, had been in an accident somewhere in the Midwest and had his leg was knocked off. So he worked at a prosthetics factory, and he created all these different kind of strange prosthetic limbs for himself. And one of them actually had like a wah-wah pedal and everything included in the foot, and all these great things. So he had one special cheaply made prosthetic he would use on stage, and he had a chainsaw. He'd actually saw his leg off on stage, and plus he wore like a stuffed parrot on his shoulder. So so maybe these guys are gonna be hard to beat.
I get the feeling I'm still not coming through. Oh, you take my money. My life is a wreck. I know it might sound.
First it was hard. We did. I had to pair with the B-52s for a while because I could bring them in, and they were already getting a reputation. So we did 2 nights at the old downtown cafe in Virginia Highland, what's now Highland Tap. 2 nights swapping sets with the B-52s. We'd play just A-B-A-B, and the next night B-A-B-A, so we didn't have to change the gear too much. And I remember there was no air conditioning. It must have been 100 degrees in there, and it was jammed.
These crowds were rabid.
A lot of kids coming from nowhere trying to find themselves. I'm sure that happens in every generation, but it seemed like it had a little bit more intensity back then. There was always something new, something exciting. You had to go to these clubs to see it, capture it, and to feel it.
Talking about the Sex Pistol show being kind of a catalyst that kind of brought people together and kicked off a bit of a scene. That's certainly true, but I was also thinking that the band, the Fans, were largely responsible for kind of a bunch of people that were kind of into stuff like Bowie and Roxy music, and music that really never got much of a foothold in the South, They started kind of grouping around the Fans and going down to Rose's Cantina and stuff to see them, because they were the only band in Atlanta that was doing anything remotely like that.
I think that event in Atlanta musical history
It lit a big fire.
A lot of things off.
So the punk scene in Atlanta in the late 70s, out of which came the Fans, the Brains, the Nobs, the Restraints, kind of set everything in motion, in place for the 80s.
Up in trucks and pocket colored union back. I'm pushing through the crowd, trying to get the wretched out. Now it's campaign shouting like a southern diplomat. Reggae